What's up, everybody? It's Camera Work Podcast, Episode 3. This is John Ricard speaking. I'm a portrait photographer based in New York, and I'm joined, as always, by Ray Tamarra.
Hey, everyone. How you doing? Ray Tamarra here, and I'm a working photographer in New York, and I just focus on celebrities.
Right. Now, you just came back from, well, let me back up a second. So we're going to talk about a couple of things today. The main topic we're going to talk about is a book called The Game, which details the pickup artist community, what these guys do to pick up women. And when I read it, I found a lot of connections between picking up women and picking up clients, and we're going to talk about that quite a bit. But before we get there, now, you just came back from Park City, correct?
Right. I go to Park City every year to cover the Sundance Festival. I do Celebrity Candid, so I basically catch all the celebrities coming into town at the airports or walking up and down Main Street or walking out of the
Now, how does this
studios.
work, though? How much of what you're shooting at Park City is with permission versus you just catching them coming and going somewhere?
There's no permission. I'm just catching them coming and going. So this year it was Daniel Radcliffe. Some of the bigger names were Daniel Radcliffe, Rooney Mara, Nicole Kidman, and James Franco. So catching them because they have to promote the movies that they're in.
Right, but how do you know where they're going to be? Because whenever I mention to people that I have a friend who's an actual paparazzi, which is you, the first thing they go is like, well, how does he know where they're going to be?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are very curious about that, but it's pretty simple. It's like if you have a movie, obviously you have to promote the movie, and if you have a movie that's in Sundance and that's all information that's available, then you're most likely going to be there to promote the movie. So James Franco, Nicole Kidman has a movie. It's in Sundance, and they have to do all the promotional activities that go with it. So we just go there, and we go to the places that they're usually going to have to go to, which is the portrait studio, the Wire Image Portrait Studio, the AP Portrait Studio, the Entertainment Weekly.
Right, but you're not
lounge.
shooting them inside the portrait studio.
Oh,
you're
no.
catching them on their way in to be photographed by AP.
Yep. That's basically it. The biggest name was Nicole Kidman, and we caught her coming out of the Grey Goose Lounge, and then chased her probably. I ran probably like maybe half a mile.
Right. I think there's a video I have on YouTube still of your running technique.
Yeah,
we shot it at the Thanksgiving Day parade like 3 years ago. It was funny.
But no. This is another running. This is another technique because
another video.
Just running, and I made the unfortunate decision of trying to go to the back of the garage, and she went into the front, so I missed that entering shot when she was going into the Los Angeles Times portrait studio. But I got her later on that day after she had lunch, and I mean, it was, for me, I don't really work on Nicole Kidman because she's not in town that much, but it worked out because getting really nice shots of Nicole Kidman walking is very, very a rare occurrence.
Right. Yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah, it sounds cool. I mean, I've stood next to you once or twice while you shoot it, and it seems really hard to me to shoot that stuff. And people don't give the paps enough credit. People are always like, they're not real photographers. And I say to people, go get a friend of yours, put that friend in a car, and have that friend walk from the car into a doorway, and let me see you nail 3 or 4 good shots in the amount of time it takes that person to come out of a car and reach a door. It's extremely difficult balancing the flash and focusing and getting the right angle and stuff. It's extremely difficult.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just that, like with anything, it's a craft. So the things that I do, it's a very physical type of photography. I talk about this all the time. It's like I liken it to football photography. I have to work out. I have to be as fit as possible because it's so physically tasking. Like running, carrying a 35-pound bag, just trying to be in another place. It's almost, I liken it to a running back trying to get through the line of scrimmage and being able to bypass linebacker security guards and trying to get to that open space where you can take shots.
Right, and you have to have a certain amount of aggression, like aggressiveness, to keep your position from everyone else. I don't know how you do it. Personally, I can't do it. I don't know, I think those guys would just be like walking all over me. The other photographers would just be like elbowing me out of the way. I'd like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be in your way, and I don't think I'd get any shots. So, but it's good you're able to do it. But I had a decent week. Shot BET. I shoot pretty much every episode of 106 in Park. They built a new set, which was beautiful. I mean, it's a nicer looking set than what you see on like Letterman or Leno, but a little hard to shoot. They added a Steadicam and that blocks some of my shots, and just trying to work out the kinks with that, and did some executive portraits the other day, and that was, you know, it's hard, but it's good when they call you for that. Like, I've got clients who keep calling me back for it, so I know I'm doing it right, but I don't know if there's anything more difficult than taking like a 45-year-old man who doesn't want to be photographed and throwing him in front of a backdrop and shooting him. I mean, it's not easy. So, you know, that was basically my week. So, it was good. Had a couple of jobs, so can't complain. All right, but let's get to the main topic today, which is this book called The Game by Neil Strauss. And it's a game about the pickup artist community. These were guys that, I'm guessing he doesn't really give the years. I'm thinking it takes place around like maybe like 97 to 2005-ish. That was the guess, the feeling that I had. It's about guys who really set about trying to figure out, like, how do we pick up women? What is the science of this? And they were doing a lot of it on like news groups on the computer, the like bulletin board groups, I think they used to call it back then. And, you know, each guy was like adding his own little contribution until they kind of really figured out the science of picking up women. So what did you make of the book?
I mean, it's funny because I read the book, and I'm still, I haven't finished it, but I still am continuing reading it. And I thought it was fascinating. I photographed one of the guys. His name was Mystery.
Where did you find him? He's like the main guru in the book. The writer, Neil Strauss, he's a complete novice. He's horrible with women. And the guy he meets, who's the master pickup, the guy he calls the best pickup artist in the world, is a guy named Mystery. And when I read the book, I kept going, man, what does this guy look like? You know, who is he? And of course, nowadays you can go on YouTube and everything's there. So now I know what he looks like and what his personality is like. But where did you photograph him?
I mean, I photographed him. I didn't know who he was. He's a very tall, lanky guy. And I photographed him exiting from the Fallon show. But it wasn't Fallon. It was the Conan show, probably 3 years ago when Conan was doing that show before Jimmy Fallon took over for him. And he was leaving that show. I guess he did an appearance there, and I caught him. I got probably a couple of shots of him. I had no idea who he was.
And you captioned that as Mystery? Like that's the name that you had it as, you think?
Yeah, because I didn't know. I can't recall if I even researched his real name. No, I didn't. I just called it Mystery and just said TV personality Mystery because I thought he was like a reality person, like a Chris Angel.
Right. Yeah, I think that's who he actually wanted to be. If you read the book, he wants to be this like master magician, like a David Blaine type. But let's kind of get to what these guys were doing. So again, it was fascinating to me because what these guys would do is they were on a bulletin board group and they would go out and somebody would try a certain technique to meet women. And then he would write about what happened, what worked and what didn't work. And then someone else would add another piece of the puzzle. So I'll give you one example. They would go up and they realized that instead of going up to a girl and saying like, you know, hi, excuse me, you know, my name is John, and, you know, I just want to say you're really pretty and I wanted to just introduce myself to you. They realized that does not work. So they realized what worked better was to just jump right into a question that would get the person thinking and get us engaged in a conversation right away. And it might be a question that you don't have to be educated to know the answer to. So it could be anything. So I might walk up into the crowd and just say, you know, so what do you think? Is this the last snowstorm of the winter, or are we going to get 5 more? Just anything to start the conversation going. So he would say, he would write on a board, you know, I did this and it worked. I managed to get 6 or 7 conversations going, but I hit a wall. People would start saying to me like, what are you, taking a survey, guy? You know, like, why do you want to know this? You know, what are you, taking a poll? You know, what are you asking our opinion about this for? So he would pose that problem on the bulletin board. Then someone else would contribute and they would write back and they would say, well, you know what you have to do? You have to say, oh, me and my friends over there at the other table were having this argument and I wonder if you could settle it. You know, who's the hottest supermodel, Cindy Crawford or Claudia Schiffer? And that would solve the problem of it looks like you're doing a survey. So in this manner, the techniques would keep getting built up and built up because every time they'd run into a problem, they would post it on the board and someone else would make a contribution and solve it. And by the time a few years had passed, they had the whole thing figured out like a science of how to pick up women. And when I read the book, the thing that fascinated me was I was like, wow, everything I'm reading here about picking up women matches perfectly with what I've read about picking up clients and everything that I've learned over the years about picking up clients. It's so similar. The techniques that they're using. So did it strike you that way when you read the book?
I mean, it did. I mean, I have to admit that I'm a photographer by choice, and I mean, I'm a photographer by choice. I fell into photography. One of the things I liked about photography is I don't have to deal with anyone else. I don't have a coworker. I don't have to have social interactions with other people.
Now let's back up one second.
And
back up one second. That's kind of unique to what you're shooting, though, because again, you're a paparazzi to a large degree, and in that type of photography, right, the people interaction is very, very minimal, right? But a lot of other types of photography are hugely people-based.
Right, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, it's whatever you decide. So when I read the book, what resonated with me is that these are a group of men, and it can apply to anyone who are who are learning social skills that they didn't pick up anywhere else, and that they were applying it to whatever they desire to get. And fortunately, I've been able to work on jobs where I would have to track musicians, and being that photojournalist, that would just be the fly on the wall jobs. Right. And I was always fascinated with the charisma of some of these superstar rockers or rappers, right, and just seeing how the public would fawn them. And that was always fascinating. And then just seeing that, and then reading this book, and then just understanding how, if you're charismatic, if you have social skills, that the world is your oyster.
Right. Now, these guys really broke it down to some very specific ways of doing it, okay? So let's kind of go through the way they break it down and see where this connects to us as photographers. Okay, so the first thing for these guys is what they call opening the set. So they see a group of girls, it could be 2 girls, it could be 4 girls, whatever, and they need to open the set. And as I mentioned before, one of the things they realized was that when you walk in and you said, oh my God, I just want to say, you're so beautiful, and I saw you all the way across the room, and I'd love to just get a chance to talk to you for a minute, you are conveying that you have a lower status than her. You are not coming in as an equal at this point. You're coming in as a lower status person. And it's a weird thing because you would think that approach would work. And I know in the years when I was in the dating scene or whatever, that's exactly what I would have thought worked. It's exactly what, to me, logically should work, but it doesn't work. And it's the same as a client. Like, you could have this feeling that you could go up to a client and, I don't know, whatever your client, let's say MTV, you might have this temptation to walk up to go to MTV to that meeting and say, oh my God, I've watched MTV since I was 11 years old, and I've loved it, and man, if I could just say I work for MTV, oh my God, I'd be so proud, and I'd be the best worker, and I'd give you guys 100%, and please hire me. That doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't. It sounds like it should. Doesn't work.
No, I mean, according to these guys, you just have to set yourself above, and you want
what's the reason, though?
Because
Why?
You want the client or the prospect to be interested in you, to want to find out more about you, who want to hire you, and that's why you have to put yourself on a higher plane.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I think that, like I was saying before, they were applying it to women, but the things that they were doing, the skills that they were learning and that they were testing and that they required, is applicable to anything you want.
And now, if you look at it in terms of the client, you think about it. Okay, so let's say you're interviewing with Jane. That's who you're interviewing with. Now, obviously, Jane has a boss above her. So if you think about it, does Jane want to go up to her boss and say, hey, I got this new photographer we should work with. He hasn't accomplished anything yet, but he's really hungry and he's really eager to work with us, and I think we have a great opportunity to really help him move along in his career. That's not what...
No, I mean, what Jane wants to do is she wants a photographer that's a rock star photographer that they can piggyback on the photographer's fame, or they can associate with the photographer's credibility so that they can further their brand.
Absolutely. She wants to think about, let's go what you're saying. She wants to piggyback off your success. She wants to go to her boss and say, I got the rock star photographer, the hot guy. He has agreed to work with us, and we can ride his fame.
Right.
I completely agree with that. That's what she wants, and that's the same thing that these guys were realizing, that the girls in the club are looking for the same thing. So that other approach of like, oh, please, just doesn't work. Doesn't work for picking up girls, doesn't work for picking up clients either.
I mean, just basically it's social skills. Basically it's trying to figure out how you can separate yourself from the clutter.
Right. And you think about it. Imagine you're the famous guy. You're whoever. You're Russell Simmons or whatever. How many people probably approach you the same way and come up to you and say, oh, my God, I always loved what you did, and if I could just be part of it. But again, so when these guys were approaching women, they realized that they didn't want to just come up and do the same approach. So that's why they would just come up and say, let me ask you a question. They would just walk up like this. They go, a quick question about relationships. I have a friend who dated a girl for 5 years. They just broke up. Now he's got a new girlfriend. New girlfriend comes to the house. There's still pictures of the old girlfriend. And the new girl says he should take him down. He's not sure. What do you think?
Right. I mean, that's a perfect way to open a set, and that's also another way to open up a client. If you approach a client in that manner and you say, I mean, whatever, you can make up some story, but you're coming in as an equal or higher, and you're not coming in as a fan or just as an aspirant.
Right. You're not coming in, like you said, as a fan. And very often when you're a fan, you want something from the client. You're not trying to convey that initially. If anything, you're trying to convey that you have something to give. Right. So maybe you can walk up to the client and you see that client talking to a group of people, and you just walk up and you go, that shirt, that blue shirt. Tell me you didn't get that blue shirt on Wilshire Boulevard, because I tried to buy a shirt exactly like that, and they were completely out of large. And if I found out that you bought that on Wilshire, we're going to have a problem, because I tried to buy that shirt. Just anything other than, oh, my name's John, and doesn't work, because you're not coming in as an equal, as you say. Now, other things that these guys started to realize was the value of high energy, which is where I think that enthusiasm that we talked about earlier of being able, that there is a way you want to convey, like, oh my God, I'd love to work for MTV. You want to convey that in some way, because you do want to have a high energy level when you're dealing with a client meeting. You don't want to be so cool that you're indifferent, but you can't do it at the point where you've lowered your status so much that people don't want to work with you.
See, I think, I mean, you have to read the book, but you also have to read. I read the book with a frame of reference, and the frame of reference is that it's about marketing, and it's about the social aspects of marketing. A lot of people talk about, being digitally pervasive, and having Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff, and that's absolutely true. But then there's the component that you forget about, which is what you do in the meeting and how you come off in person, and that's just as important, because what the guys talk about is closing, and if you can't close, then what's the point?
Before we get to close, because let's still work through some more of their steps. So another step that these guys would talk about was something called the neg, which was short for the word negative, meaning that when they were trying to hit on the particular girl, what they would do is they would give the girl a little diss. So they might say something like, man, your hair would be really nice if you curled it more. It's almost like a backhanded compliment. Or you might even just say, you spit when you talk. It could be a harder neg like that, or it could just be something a little more casual, like, yeah, that jacket's nice. My mom has one just like it. Right. That conveys that maybe her sense of style isn't that good. But what they were doing was they were giving just a little bit of a diss to the target, and they explain it as a couple of reasons for this. For one thing, if you're talking to your friends, this might be how you're talking to them. If you think about it, when I'm talking to my friends, I'm hanging with my homeboys, however you want to call it, this is how you're talking a lot of times. You're ragging on each other, you're dissing each other, you're teasing each other. This is a part of a friendly relationship. The only people that you talk completely perfect to are people that you're nervous around, people that you're trying to impress, that you're afraid to make some kind of insult to. So their attitude was like, by giving these negs, you're kind of showing that you're comfortable, that you're not begging her, and you're trying to make her feel kind of the same conversation she had talking to her brother, who would give her these little disses. And when you look at reading about other types of social interaction, there's a book called Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. That's Orenklaff. And he talks about frames. This is the language he uses. He talks about having a social frame or a power frame and who's holding the frame and what is the frame at the moment. And in his book, which has nothing to do with picking up women, he talks about using negs the same exact way. He doesn't call it a neg, but it's the same thing. He's going into a company like MTV and saying like, hey, you know, I'd love to work for MTV. You know, too bad it's not 1995 when everybody was watching MTV. That you can do this to the client and communicate a confidence that you're not begging them. And for me, again, it was fascinating to think that in the pickup artist community, they're using it. And it's the same thing that we can use as photographers with clients sometimes, letting them know that we don't have you on this super, super high pedestal. We want the job, but we're comfortable saying to you what your flaws are as a company and letting you know that our whole world is not revolving around you.